Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. Welcome back to Tunji Talks. Now, today we are going to be talking about parental engagement in school, and we're going to listen to two influential people in regards to this issue. Now, we are going to start off with an American businessman, PBD, Patrick David. I've done a number of videos with PBD. So he in this video, PBD is talking about parental engagement. In particular, let me set it up for you. So in this scenario, Patrick David's having a discussion, and he's talking about if he had a school, these are the expectations he would have for parents. So let's hear what he has to say.
You have 4 kids. Some may go to college. Some might go on a sports scholarship. You've thought about this.
I'm going to do one thing that's going to be slightly different. Here's what I'm doing. If you go to my school, if your kids are going to my school, I need your involvement, the parents' involvement, period.
Okay.
If the parent is not involved, your kids can't go to my school because I'm going to need your help. If we're going to spend time challenging your kids, pushing them, driving them, you have a certain responsibility every month for you to come to school. What do you mean by this?
The parents need to come to school?
The parents are coming.
Like Rodney Dangerfield and back to school?
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about you're coming to school.
This is a model that works in the inner city on the charter schools.
You're coming to school because we're going to also work on you becoming a better parent.
Weekly meetings.
Because we're going to become collectively with the team. So we'll update you. Hey, let me tell you what's going on. Here's what happened this week. This is what we're working on. These are the things that we want to talk about, what parents are working. Hey, Johnny, can you tell us what you're doing with your kids, that your 2 kids that go to our school, they have straight A's? What are you doing? Mary, can you share with us what you're doing with your kids that they got straight A's as well? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, you guys do that? Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to use other parents that are raising their kids well to develop other parents that are also holding their kids accountable. This idea about let me send my kids somewhere, you do your thing with the kids, it's parents' responsibility. So we would put a bit of the onus also on the parents. The focus will be leadership development.
Having watched the clip, I don't think what he's asking for is extreme or excessive. Now, when we get to the nuts and bolts, what is he actually talking about? So he's talking about 2 things: parental coaching. So he's saying like once a month he'll have parents come to the school and they'll talk about, oh, I do this, this and this with my child, and because of this they're getting A's, B's, for example, and it's really a chance for parents to come together and talk about strategies that they use, and parents may find that really helpful. Another thing he's talking about, parental engagement. I think that is so important. I came up with an analogy recently, so I want you to imagine a triangle. Now, at the bottom of that triangle, the foundation, we've got teachers and the school and the parents. Now, we are the foundation. We work together, and together we help that young person rise, and we help them to reach the top of that triangle, because at the end of the day, we want young people to be the best versions of themselves. We want young people to leave school with the grades that they deserve. Why do they deserve these grades? Because they've worked hard for those grades. And you know what? Grades open doors. The correct grades open doors, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Now, let's move on to Catherine Biblising. Now, she is a headmistress here in the UK. Some call her Britain's strictest headmistress, and there's a lot written about her. Also, there are a number of interviews and documentaries on YouTube about her school and her teaching methodology and whatnot, and it really does work. So let's take a look.
Founder of Michaela Community School in Wembley and dubbed as Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Birbalsingh tweeted that, well, and we've got the whole tweet here, parents, never has there been a better time for you to teach your kids at home. Don't assume they are being taught well at school. You might get lucky, great, but don't assume it. Teach them after school, daily, always. Other parents do, they're just not telling you.
Well, Catherine joins us now. Good morning to you. Thank you for being with us today. So, obviously, this has had quite the reaction, this tweet, and I think sometimes in a tweet you only get so many words to be able to explain what you really mean. So this is kind of your opportunity to expand on that, because you're not suggesting that people go home and get a whiteboard out and sit their children down in front of it as you start doing algebra.
No, well, I mean, if you want to do that, you can. But my main concern is simply that sometimes parents sort of tick the box and think, I've sent my child off to school, and they don't really know what the child is accessing. And sometimes the child will access some really excellent teaching all of the time. And other times the teacher might be absent. The teacher might be tired. The particular situation at the moment, you might have a deputy head in a gym with 120 children because there aren't enough teachers in at the moment because of the COVID situation. And obviously proper teaching isn't able to take place. And even if everything were perfect, parents need to realize going to museums, reading with your child, counting the peas on the plate, asking your child, what tests do you have this week? Shall I test you? And you take out the textbook and you look through it. Sometimes parents don't feel very confident in doing that. But I tell you, you can learn stuff with your child. Have them teach you. Make the conversation about learning. And that's so important because children will want to copy their parents. They want to get their respect. And if they see you sort of on your phone all the time, then they'll go on their phone. Whereas if you're reading with them, I always say to parents, try and spend, oh, sorry, those are our pips for lesson changeover. I always say, try and sit down with them for half an hour if you can. And if you can't, do 10 minutes where you take a book. And if your child isn't much of a reader, you read a paragraph out loud, they read a paragraph out loud. And you just swap round like that. If they're really little, you read to them, finger under the words, and don't just read one book. Read 3 or 4. And when I say 3 or 4, it's because the little books, for toddlers, they only take 10 minutes to read. So it's about always having that hat on of, I'm developing my child, I'm helping to support my child with their learning.
All of that makes perfect sense. And as Holly said, you can only get your message across in a certain amount of words in a tweet. And you do, the minute you send it, any tweet, you throw yourself to the wolves. However, in the spirit of that tweet, can parents of children at your school, the Michaela Community School in Wembley, can they assume that their children are being taught well?
Well, look, what everybody needs to remember, I don't want parents to assume that. I want you to always assume that you've got to do lots at home. Because if everything's going really well, then brilliant, you're lucky. And when I say you're lucky, I don't mean that it's exceptional. I mean that you're lucky because you're getting a free, great education, and that's brilliant, wonderful. But the fact is, teachers aren't in sometimes. Teachers are tired. There's a whole variety of things. Teachers are training. So you've got teachers who are absolutely brand new, never been in a classroom before. It takes years to become a really excellent teacher. I can remember a year 9 class that I taught in my first year of teaching. Well, they hardly learned a thing. I can tell you that for nothing. And it's not because I'm a bad person. It was because I was a brand new teacher. And that's just natural in schools. And so that's okay.
There are going to be parents watching this that will be thinking, hang on a minute, I'm holding down multiple jobs. I'm working very, very hard. I might be a single parent. I might be co-parenting with somebody else. I've got so much on my plate already. I do rely in the education system to educate my children because there's not an awful lot left when I walk through the door and I've just finished work. In fact, at that time, it's just to have fun and enjoy my children, not to start bringing in education. So what would you say to them? Because it feels like it's just another way to pile on a little bit more guilt onto those parents.
Well, it's not about guilt. It's about actually addressing the idea that you've just said there, fun versus education. Education is fun. And if you use that as a time for bonding, then you can get to know each other, you can learn stuff together. You sit down and watch a television program, for instance, and you talk about the characters and how they're developing. And, oh, what do you think's going to happen next here? Oh, wow, do you like the ending? And why did what kind of ending would you have preferred? That is learning. If you're a great cook, you teach them how to cook. If you're great at football, you teach them football. There's a sense of you trying to impart knowledge all of the time. And that's from the moment they're born until they're 18. And that isn't about, it doesn't take more time. It's just a shift in mindset as opposed to just thinking that's all for school.
The noise we heard earlier, you described them as the sort of the lesson pips. Normally, other schools take 5 to 15 minutes to get into the next lesson because of the rowdiness. You can do it in about a minute and a half. That's pretty quick. That's discipline. But people have said pupils' friends have dubbed your school a prison school. So what do you say to that?
Well, what all our children say is that Other people might say that, but they don't understand the kind of quality of learning and the amount of time they're getting their lessons. So what you're referring to there is that we have silent corridors and the children move very quickly to their lessons. And it means that there's no wasted time. And when you're trying to catch up children on their chronological reading age, they're 11 years old, but they actually have a chronological reading age of a 7-year-old, they need time in their lessons. And so notice, what am I talking about with parents? I'm talking about maximizing learning, using every possible minute to develop the children in front of us, because there's so much to learn about the world. And so why wouldn't we want to do that? When you say other schools, I mean, look, some schools will take a few minutes, some schools will take longer, depending on how the school runs things. And that's sort of what I mean, really, when I'm talking to parents. You don't really know what's happening in the school. And the best thing you can do for your child is to develop them at all times in terms of their learning. If you want your child to be good at maths, it's not just about their maths lessons. It's about maybe doing some checkers and some chess and some magic with them. It's about making maths part of their lives all of the time. Same thing with English. It's not just about being taught how to write an essay. It's about constant reading. And if you just let your child sit on their phone all the time, then their brains are not going to develop in the same way as children who are reading all of the time. And they're not going to want to read. So one of the worst things you could do is give a toddler a phone and have them on their phone all the time. And you're not supervising that. I don't mind if you want to use some maths apps and you sit with the child and do it with them. But if they're just on their phones all of the time, when it comes to reading, they then find that boring. And it's really hard for a book that's black and white and flat to compete with a phone that has all sorts of explosions and colors and so on. And it's just really me asking parents, think about this stuff, because otherwise, I tell you what happens. You get to 16 and your child underperforms at GCSE, and then you think, gosh, what could I have done? Well, I'm trying to ring the alarm bell now and say, come on, parents. I know it's hard, and I know lots of us don't have time, but even if you just spend 15 minutes a day and just shift your mindset so you're thinking more about I always have that hat on of how am I developing my child?
Well, I mean, there is absolutely no question, Catherine, that talking to you, you are passionate about this, and it does sound incredibly strict, and we did say that it's been described as a prison school. However, when asked about the teachers, the pupils have said they are strict because it's the fact that they love us.
Now, for me, one of the big takeaways is the following. Having an interest in what your child is doing. So, for instance, a child comes home, what are you doing at school at the minute? What are you studying in English or history or geography? You get what I mean. But also, I think that example that comes along later in the clip where Catherine mentions, you can be watching a TV show and you talk about the characters. That's a good thing. Or maybe you know how to cook. Can you teach your child how to cook? Can you teach your child about food safety, for example? Or maybe you're a coach and you do like judo or some sort of martial art. There's so much to learn and take in an interest in helping your young person develop what they like. That is a really big thing. The big takeaway is the following. It's about, as adults, about modeling the behavior, work ethic and drive that we want to see in young people. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with anything I've said? Do you disagree with anything I've said? I look forward to reading your comments. So remember, family, it is winning season forever and always. I'll see you soon.